before I hop into the live demonstration, I just want to talk a little bit about Fixed RFID and some of the benefits. So Fixed RFID, it really allows you to gain unintended visibility, continuous coverage, and even automated checkpoints throughout a warehouse, stock rooms, anything like that, doing maybe asset tracking. But it kind of removes the need for manually scanning different items, or even scanning through mobile RFID, and allows you to set up maybe portals or something like that, so that all these items are scanned automatically. So maybe as they go through a doorway, you can keep track of the tags or items as they're going through that portal. Maybe keeping track of items in a stock room. So you want to set up continuous coverage in a stock room to keep inventory and things like that. You could set it up to be a timed inventory. So every once in a while, you capture all the information in that stock room. Or maybe through a portal, you could set up some type of trigger, like a light sensor or something like that, to start scanning and read all of the tags as they're passing through that portal. So that's kind of a huge benefit of Fixed RFID, and a lot of people in the past have had difficulty kind of adding that Fixed RFID system to their application. So maybe they already have barcode scanning, or even in some cases mobile RFID, and now they want to add on to that and add Fixed RFID to add some of these benefits here. So there's been a lot of questions that we've seen in getting up and running with Fixed RFID, namely the initial investment. Which option do you go with? Do you have custom software to get up and running, maybe a full end-to-end solution so that you have a full system that incorporates the Fixed RFID? And maybe what do you do with those existing systems that you've already invested in? So that's where ClearStream is a little bit different than these different options. Custom software, there's going to be a huge upfront investment. You can get the application as you need it, but the investment's large, and maybe it won't work in the end. And with custom software, there's always the possibility that it's going to have to be customized in the future. So there's that big investment up front to test the application, and then later on, if you want to make changes to the application, you may need to do that in the future. With a full end-to-end solution, you could go with a large system that incorporates both reading of the Fixed RFID as well as keeping track of all of the assets or inventory or anything like that on the back end. And in a similar way, that's giving you maybe a system that can do partially what you want, but it may not be everything. It may need to change in the future, and you may already have a system in place. So if you have an existing system in place, do you run these two systems side by side? Is the one replacing the first system that you made the investment with? Maybe you already have this large system in place, and you just want to add on to it with the Fixed RFID. And that's what ClearStream allows you to do. It allows you to take maybe an existing system you have, or even maybe a new system, and add on that Fixed RFID front end to it, so you can start reading tags into that existing system. So that's kind of where ClearStream can kind of bring all of those pieces together. It can give you those benefits of Fixed RFID for unattended visibility, continuous coverage, and automated checkpoints, but it also allows non-programmers to set the system up and deploy it within minutes. So you can really get up and running with Fixed RFID, see it working, see how it works, and attach it to something that you may already have. So you have some large system in place, you can go ahead and add Fixed RFID to that system with a minimal investment. You can see it working, and you can then customize and change it as you need it. So there's no programming involved. So that custom solution, which maybe was set up to do one thing, you can later on change it if you need to add on to that system. Okay, so with that, I was going to jump over to the actual application and show you ClearStream and actually how it works. So I'm going to actually jump out of the PowerPoint here and jump over to ClearStream. I'll bring it up on my screen here. Okay, so this is ClearStream RFID. This is the actual application immediately after an install. So if you were to download the free trial from our website, install the application on your PC, you would be presented with this screen when you open up the application. Now the way this application works is it's really allowing you to hook up different Fixed RFID readers that you have on your network to a destination of where you want those tags to go. And the destination could be something like an Excel spreadsheet, it could be a text file, or it could be an ODBC database. So it could be something like Microsoft Access, SQL Server, Oracle, or anything like that. So it gives you flexibility in where those tags are being sent to, and then it'll give you flexibility in how you send those tags to that data source. With the installation of ClearStream, we actually provide a sample database so that you can actually, within just a couple clicks, map your reader to that database, and you can see the application working. And that's actually going to be the database that I hook up to today so that you guys can see it in action. And if you want to download the trial, you can go ahead and do that and hook it up to the database that I'm using today. Okay. So the first thing I really need to do, though, is configure the source of my tags, which is going to be a fixed reader. And then I'll go ahead and select the destination after that. So on the source side here, I'm going to actually go ahead and select the symbol RFID or Motorola RFID option here so that I can now pick the reader that I'd like to start up and start reading tags from. Now, just as a note, we do have, within the next couple of months here, we do have an update to ClearStream that will support not only Motorola RFID readers, but we'll also be adding LLRP support. So we'll have a lot of additional manufacturers that you can connect with. And you can go ahead and start attaching to those readers just as you do with the symbol RFID or Motorola RFID that I'm doing today. So just as a note, that'll be available within a couple months, and it will be posted to our website when that becomes available. Okay, so the first thing I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and let's just say I'm setting up, and I have a Motorola FX9500 reader set up over a doorway here. And I'm going to say set up a what's called a sync process here to move the data from that RFID reader to a destination. So I'm going to give this a name just so we can see what it's doing. And let's say it's RFID reads from doorway 1 or something like that. So we know now when these tags are being read, it's coming from doorway 1. We know that something went through that portal. Okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is actually go ahead and find the reader. Now these readers hook up on your LAN network, and they'll be assigned an IP address, and they have a host name. So if you know the IP address or the host name, you can just go ahead and enter that here. All right, so you just enter the IP address or the host name, and then continue. There's also an option so that you can find the reader. So if you don't know the host name or you don't know the IP address, you can actually search for the reader on your network by using this little search dialog here. So if you bring this up here and click Start, and it's actually going to search your network, trying to find any available readers. So really, out of the box, if you unpackage your reader hardware, plug it into your network, install the ClearStream software, just hit this Find button, and it's going to find it for you. And then you can go ahead and continue on with the rest of the setup of mapping those RFID readers to a destination of your data. So this will go searching through the network. Might just take a little bit of time here. Okay, and then once it finds one, it'll put it in the list there. You can see here this one found an FX7400. This is a Motorola RFID reader. I'm going to let it continue because I do have a 9500 set up on a doorway here. Okay, so as this is searching, it's just again populating this this list box here with all of the readers that it finds on your network. Once it gets to the other reader I have, should be coming up in a second. There we go. Okay, this one has actually the IP address, but let's just make sure it's the right one. Okay, it says reader model F9500. So this is the Motorola 9500 I have set up as a portal around a doorway here. I'm going to go ahead now and use that one for the rest of the demonstration. So I could select the FX7400 and use that, but I'm going to go ahead and select this 9500 here, and then I just hit the Select button. Okay, when you hit the Select button, it'll actually go ahead and connect to the reader, and fill out the information on your source side with that reader information. So you'll see the reader ID popped up here, so it actually got that from the reader, and along with the IP address, and this could be the host name as well. Okay, so I'm going to configure that just for now. I'm going to come back to this a little later just to show you some of the additional features you have there in setting up the source reader. Now I'm going to go ahead on the destination side and select where I'd like the tags to go as this reader is reading tags that are going through that portal. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and back over to this drop-down here for the type. And again, I can select ODBC, Microsoft Excel spreadsheet if I'd like, excuse me, or even a text file. So for the demo here, I'm going to pick ODBC. When you select ODBC, you'll be presented with this ODBC selector, which really just allows you to pick which database you'd like to send this data to, or which table you'd like to, and then which table you'd like to send to within that that destination. Okay, so let me just show you. I'm going to open up. I have the sample database that's provided with the installer here. It's called this ClearStream RFID Access Database. It just has a couple things here for an RFID tag list. It has this main menu so you can see the tags and report on the tags. But I'm going to show you there's this RFID tag list table that's preloaded in the database. So in this database table, you can see it has a tag ID field, an antenna name, the signal strength, a date timestamp, as well as a reader name, all preloaded in this access database. And so what I'm going to go do now is actually select that table on the destination side. So again, I selected ODBC. I selected I wanted to go to the ClearStream RFID sample database. And then within that database, you'll be presented with the different tables that are available. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the RFID tag list. Once you do that, down below you'll be presented with the field mappings. Now the field mappings are where you're just hooking up the different fields of information that the reader is picking up and for each tag to the different fields in the access database. So the only thing I want to do is remove this primary key field on the database because you saw it had this primary key here. I don't want the reader sending any information to that. That's just going to be generated by Microsoft Access. So I'm going to leave that out of the field mappings. So in the field mappings now you can see I have the tag is mapped to the tag, the antenna is mapped to antenna, the signal strength to signal strength, and so on. So every time a tag is read, it's capturing all of these pieces of information and sending it to this RFID tag list and matching them up to these fields here. So tag goes through the portal, it sends that information to the destination, and that is recorded in the access database. So let me go ahead and actually close my table here so that when I reopen it, you'll see the tags that I've read. So now I've set this up in a very simple form here. It's just really just reading tags and dumping them to the destination, but I'm going to come back to this in a minute to show you how you can customize that further. So I'm going to go ahead and save my project. Okay, so this you're really doing once as well during the initial setup or anytime you're adding additional readers to your application. Okay, so I went ahead and saved it. Now, to get up and running, you would just click on the Start-Stop form. So after you're done with all of your configuration, you have your readers picked, you have your destination of where you want those tags to go picked, you then come over to the Start-Stop form, and all you really need to do is click Start. So once I click Start here, it's going to connect to the reader, start reading tags. Now I have a bunch of tags sitting underneath this doorway right now. I probably should have asked a bunch of people to start walking through my portal, but I have some sitting underneath there. So now you can see the reader is starting to read these tags, and you'll see the activity down in the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Stops to power down the reader. And now I'm going to go back over to my access database, and I'm going to go back to that tag list. And you can see here is all the tags that were underneath that reader and read for every time those tags were picked up by the reader. Okay, so you can see it sent the tag ID, the antenna name, the signal strength, a date timestamp of when the tag was read, as well as the reader name. Now, the reader name, this was configured. I'll go back to that in a second. But you can change this reader name so that you can set up, every time these tags are read, you know exactly which reader picked it up. So just imagine I changed that reader name to be Doorway 1. You would see that Doorway 1 appear in the as one of the as the reader name in this database, so you know exactly what portal that tag went through and when. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to now that you saw this went to this access database, and you can also just imagine this is an Excel spreadsheet. You could send it to that as well, or even just a flat text file. You can send that information all to that destination, whatever you have selected. So I'm going to go back to the configuration and show you how you can add on to this and kind of customize it as you may want to begin reading tags, how they're read, and how you're updating the destination. Okay, so I set it up in the most basic form. It was basically just sending tags from the reader to the destination, and every time it read that tag, it would append it to the bottom of the access database. So it'll just keep adding it to this table here. Okay, but I can control all of that. I can control how it's being sent from the source or the reader and how it's updating on the destination side. So one thing I just mentioned was that on the reader name, it was being sent with Fixed RFID. Well, that's the default name for your reader. But if you wanted to change that, you can just go ahead and change that here. Now I gave the reader a name of doorway 1 or maybe portal 1 or something like that if you wanted to describe where that reader is located. So now every time you see a tag that goes through that portal, you know exactly which portal it was in your database or your Excel spreadsheet or whatever, and it'll be updated in this field with that information. Okay. On the source side, you can also set it to filter data. So you can also set here source filtering. So this would be used commonly for if you had certain tags in a warehouse or a location and you only want to read ones that start with some prefix that you have defined for all of your RFID tags. So you can filter to the tags that you want to read. So if there's certain other tags in the area that you don't want to pick up and you don't want to send to the destination, you can filter that data here. You can also add filtering for signal strength or basically any one of these fields that are read by the reader, so that maybe you don't pick up weak tags, the ones that are further away. So maybe you have coverage with multiple readers. You'll make sure that you're only reading that tag from the closest reader, and you can base that off of, say, the signal strength there. Okay. On the destination side, you have options for how you'd like to send the tags to the destination. So in my case here, I was just appending them. So every time a tag was read, it was entered at the bottom of the database table. And if it came back later on, it would get entered to the bottom of the database table as well. You can change that, and you have a couple different options here. You can overwrite the destination. So every time a bunch of tags are read, it's going to overwrite that database table or Excel spreadsheet or whatever it may be. And that could be useful for something like a stock room. So say you put a bunch of antennas in maybe a small stock closet or something like that, where you have equipment that you want to keep track of, and you want to keep track of everything that's in that location. Well, if you set it to overwrite, every time the reader runs, you may want to set it up so it runs once a day. It'll read all of the items in that location and then overwrite the destination with that new information. So then the next time you open up the Excel spreadsheet, you only see the items that are in that closet or that stock room. Okay. You can also, when you do that, set up filters for the overwrite, so it only overwrites based on a location. So if you had, say, stockroom 1 and stockroom 2, when the stockroom 1 reader triggers, it's only going to overwrite the information from stockroom 1, and same for stockroom 2. You can also set the post type to be an update. Now, the update allows you to update the information in the destination. So that can be useful for keeping track of something's location. So let's just say, for instance, you had a number of different readers. They're all posting different reader names here, so which are based on different locations in, say, a warehouse or something like that. When a tag is read, you can have it update the destination with that tag, or the new tag information, which will basically overwrite the previous location that was there. So if it's moving from location A to location B, and it's the same tag, you can update that tag so that when it's read in location A, it's posted with the location A here. But then if it's read again by reader B, which is at location B, it'll be updated with that information. So you're keeping track of where that item is and where it's located. And that could also be used for something like the stockroom type scenario. If it's moving from stockroom 1 and now it's in stockroom 2, you could also update that information, but the overwrite would work as well. Okay, so those are the different options you have for controlling how that data is being sent from the source to the destination. Now, on the reader side, you still have more control in how you want to power up that reader, how you want to run that reader, when you want that reader to scan for tags and things like that. And to do that, you're configuring it in the advanced options for the reader. So when you click on advanced, you'll be presented with this dialog here. And this, again, allows you to control how the reader is powered up, how it's reading tags and things like that, when it's triggered to read tags. So in my case, I had it set to continuous. That means just start up the inventory, let the reader run. It keeps reading and querying for tags. It's looking for tags in its field of view. And any tags that are read, it's sending to the destination. But you also have options for setting up a timed type sync. So you can set up an interval. So maybe once a day you want it to scan for a minute. You can set it up to do that. So stockroom A at 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that, it powers up for a minute, reads all of the information in there, sends it to the destination. Now you have an updated spreadsheet with all of the items in that location. You can also configure it to do a daily sync. Now this would allow you to power it up maybe only during working hours, Maybe if you're only shipping things on a certain day of the week or certain days of the week, you could power up those portals from, during shipping hours or something like that. You can control that here. So you don't always have that reader on and scanning for tags. It'll come on when you need it to. It'll come on for certain intervals or a timer there, like a day of the week. The last option you have here for when that reader is reading is a GPI trigger. Now, most RFID readers have I/O ports on them, which allow you to hook up things like buttons or light sensors or motion sensors for inputs. And then on the outputs, you can hook up things like buzzers and lights and things like that, so you can do some type of indication. For the inputs, you can use them to trigger the scan. So if you wanted like a light sensor, so something's going through a portal and you want to trigger a motion sensor and trigger that reader to turn on, you can do that here by selecting GPI trigger. So most of the readers will have, say, 1 to 4 input ports. You can pick the port that the button or the light sensor or something's hooked up to, and then you just pick the duration you'd like to read. So if you have a motion sensor hooked up on port 1, you would then say, okay, once that motion sensor goes, I only want it to read for 10 seconds. You would just put the 10 seconds in here. And then that would allow you to, when something triggers that, it'll read for 10 seconds and then shut off. So that reader's only on when you need it to be. So that's done through this GPI trigger. Okay. Another thing we have down here is tag reporting. This allows you to, using these Motorola readers, allows you to trigger when a tag is sent from the source. Okay. By default, new tags here, you can see they're always sent as new tags to the destination. So every time a new tag comes into the field of view reader, it gets sent to the destination. By default, when a tag goes invisible, meaning the tag goes out of range of the antenna or the reader, it doesn't send a tag to the destination, but you can have it send a tag to the destination. So if you wanted to keep track of when a tag comes into the field of view of the reader, and then when it goes out of the field of the view reader, you can turn that on here, and you can also set the description of what happened. So in the database, you can have a field that says what happened with this tag. Well, at 8 o'clock, it was a new tag, so it came up to that portal at 8 o'clock. At 8:01, it went invisible, so it left the field of view of that reader. So you can see the two states of that tag either being next to the reader or when it left the field of view. That could be good for something like keeping track of items at a particular location, when they got there, and then when they left. We've had some people using these for keeping track of like employees at a conference table. If they have a badge, you can see how long they're at that table, and you get a timestamp of when they got to the table and a timestamp of when they left the table. Back to visible is just something when a tag that's already been seen in the past comes back into the field of view. You can report on that as well. And you can also turn on never for some of these. So if you don't want to report on a tag that's already been read, you can do that as well. On the antennas tag here, you can configure all of the antennas that are on the reader. So say if we were configuring a Motorola FX7400, it has 4 possible antennas that you can hook up to it. And if you wanted to go ahead and change, say, the transmit power on those antennas, you can do that here. You can also give them names so that on the database table side, you can see exactly which antenna read and sent that tag to the destination. So if you happen to have antennas on, say, 2 antennas on doorway 1, 2 antennas on doorway 2, you'll know exactly which doorway or portal those tags went through based on the antenna name here that picked them up. Okay, on the GPIO section here, this is actually where you configure the I/O, the outputs. So this is where you can configure the lights and the buzzers and whatever you want on the output ports of the reader. Now this allows you to do things like maybe if a tag goes through a portal, you can power up a light. Or maybe if a tag goes through a portal that's not supposed to go through the portal, you can have it power up a buzzer or something like that to do some type of security check. It'll power up a buzzer, and then you know that tag's not supposed to be going through that portal, and you can check on it. But that's where you would configure in this I/O port. And you can go ahead and start adding ports. And say here's port 1. You can configure what the alert is that causes port 1 to power up, and then also the duration. So if you wanted that buzzer to go for 10 seconds or something like that, you can configure that here. I don't have any buzzers or anything hooked up to that reader, but you can add them as you need them to this. So like the FX7400 has 2 output ports. You could power up a light and you can power up a buzzer, and you can go ahead and configure that here. And you can configure based on the alert when that output port is powered up. Okay. So that's kind of all that I wanted to show you today. Actually, one other thing I did want to mention here. If you wanted to add readers to your application, so let's say you set up your first FX9500 and everything's working perfectly. Now you want to start outfitting all of your locations with these RFID readers. You can add them as you need them to the ClearStream application. So right now I have only one setup. I just have RFID reads from the doorway, from doorway 1. Let's just say, for instance, now I wanted to hook up doorway 2. I would just go ahead and hit this plus sign over here, and it creates a new form for configuring a second reader. So now all I would do is go ahead and name this one maybe RFID reads from doorway 2. Okay, and go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and select the Motorola RFID option. I'm going to go ahead and maybe search for a different reader. In this case, maybe I'd want to use that 7400 you saw pop up on that find screen. And then on the destination, same thing. You can pick the same database table. You can pick a new database table. That's kind of up to you. So if I wanted to start dumping tags into that same RFID tag list, I would go ahead and select that on the destination. Really, the only other thing I need to do is just make sure this host name or IP address is here. And then when you power this up, when you hit the start-stop, both of these readers are powered up and start reading tags into that destination. So now you have coverage over those 2 doorways with the 2 readers sending those tags to the destination, and you can see the activity going through them. Okay, so that's kind of all I wanted to show you today in the application.